Oh, 1, 2, 3. Welcome, people. Welcome to our final, one last time performance. Thank you so much. We're truly honored that you thought enough of us tonight to come and join us here. We've got 4 main groups tonight that are here. We've got the Mesmer graduating class from 1963. Let's hear it, Mesmer. Is that it? You guys could be louder than that. Marquette graduating class from 1963. Any more Marquette buddies here? All right. We've got the YPC, the former YPC from the early 70s. Hey, YPC. And the other big group is Friends and Family. Friends and Family, let's hear you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, because this is our last night, we thought that we'd give you some information about the band. So I'm going to talk about the band for a little bit. What you see on stage is 4/5 of the original 5 Chevrons that started back in 1960. Our lead singer, Freddie Herman, best sax player I know.
My name's Fred Herman, and I'm the old man in the group here. I graduated from Mesmer in 1960 along with the Wolf, we'll hear about later. And I'm the sax player, and I'm doing most of the singing these days, but really enjoy these friends for 47 years.
Mesmer graduating class 1960. We have Dave Zadra, our bass player.
Hi, my name's Dave Zadra. I'm the bass player with the Chevrons, and I've been with the group for 47 years.
Mesmer graduating class of 1962. And actually, Dave started the Chevrons, sort of. In 1959, he put together a 3-piece group, accordion. You played guitar, Dave?
I did.
And a drummer. And they were called the Echoes.
Yes.
And they played Christian Mother breakfasts. And so here we are. It kind of turned into the Chevrons. Here we are 47 years later after Christian Mother breakfasts. Our drummer, Kenny Van Sleet.
I'm Ken Van Sleet, also known as Kenny and Vance. I'm the drummer for the Chevrons. I started in fall of 1960. I went to Mesmer and graduated in the spring of 1963.
I'm honored to say I've been the guitar player for the Chevrons for 47 years. Tom Olivas.
My name is Tom Olivas. I've been the lead guitar player for the Chevrons since June of 1960 when we started.
Marquette High graduating class of 63. The 5th member of our band we're missing tonight, a fellow named Jim Wolfel, and we lost Wolf back in '93. And he was our original bass player, and there isn't a day that I don't think about him. So Wolf, this is for you tonight. Back in '62, we decided to change what we were playing. We were a top 40 band for the first couple of years. We decided to change to an R&B, a rhythm and blues band, and we started playing things like the Impressions, the Temptations, Wilson Pickett, the Isley Brothers, all black music. About '64, we decided that a rhythm and blues band needed a keyboard player. So we started looking for a keyboard player, and one day we got lucky. We found this 16-year-old kid on the south side, Tommy Lockbaum.
I'm Tom Lockbaum, otherwise known as Lock, or sometimes Goldie. And I'm the keyboard guy. I started with the band. I'm the young guy. I'm the kid in the band. I started when I was 16 in 1964. I was in high school at the time and graduated from Pulaski High School in 1966.
Tom's been our keyboard player since 1964. He also holds the distinction of being the only Chevron who has never left the group. All the rest of us have been in and out of the group at various times. Collectively, we've had 9 wives, 17 kids, So you know what we were doing with our 9 wives. 19 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and there have been actually 12 chevrons over the last 47 years, which surprises a lot of people. In fact, it kind of surprised me when I was putting this together the other day. And through the years, when people have asked me what it's been like to play in a band that has been going on for 47 years, I've always explained it like a train. The Chevron band has been like a train. And the train never stopped. It started June 3rd, 1960.
You put it a good way, Tom. You said we were like a train.
Yeah, we're like a train.
We were like a train that kept on running. And every once in a while, for whatever reason, personal reasons or whatever, somebody would jump off the train and somebody else would jump on. But that train never stopped.
Train
running.
never stopped. From June of 60 to now, train never stopped, but we would jump on and off, wouldn't we?
Right.
12 guys jumped on and off the train.
And what's really funny about it is we're the 5 of us sitting here, we're the original guys
Yep.
that either jumped on the train in 1960 or picked up our first keyboard, i.e. keyboard, in 1964. So it's been a great 47 years, and this is really great that we can sit and talk.
The band has been like a train that started June 3rd, 1960, and the train never ever stopped. And guys would jump off the train and guys would jump on the train. Each one of us jumped off the train except for Tom Lockbaum at various times. Fred left for a couple of years. So you had a second shift job, right? Kenny Van Sleet went to Vietnam. Dave Zadra actually was our lead singer from 60 to 66. He came back in 93, so he was gone from 1966 to 1993, and he came back and agreed to be our bass player after we lost the Wolf. And I was gone for a little while in 1970. But the train never stopped, and here we are, 47 years later, and we basically have the same original 5 guys, except for the guy that we lost, and we have the other man who joined us in 64. So all of the originals at the end of the 47-year ride are the same people that started the ride 47 years ago. Thank you.
Don't
building one night, and they had that real high stage, if you remember.
It's like 7 or 8 steps getting up
Right.
there.
Yeah, it was high, and it was packed as usual. Every Saturday night they had a dance out there, and so you had 700 kids out there. And here was the Wolf standing next to me on my left, like he always did in those days. And he was messing around with 3 girls at the same time back then, and trying to juggle 3 women at one time. And he was trying to keep them separated from each other, and he didn't even know that they knew each other. So there we were, and we were at the end of our first set. We had 1 or 2 songs left to play, and the Pharaohs were kind of milling around the stage ready to come up, and we looked out there, and all 3 of his girlfriends were standing together kind of like this. Look at him, all 3 together. They all kind of came together. And 1 or 2 of them were even going like this to him, you know, and so anyway, Wolf came over to me and he said, geez, and we were right in the middle of a song, and he came over to me and he said, Ollie, I'm not leaving the stage. And I said, well, you know, you kind of got yourself into this mess. You should go down to and talk to him. And he said, well, I'm just not going to leave. And so I said, you know, we only got 1 or 2 songs left. The Pharaohs are ready to come up. And he said, well, if I have to play bass for them all night besides you guys, I will, but I'm not leaving the stage. Well, anyway, that was the Wolf, and he was a great guy and a lot of fun, and we really miss him.
Just take that old guitar I should listen to it by myself. Today's music ain't got that same soul. I like that old time rock and roll. Don't try to take me to a disco. You won't even get me out on the floor. In 10 minutes I'll be late for the door. So I take it old time rock and roll. Still like that old time rock and roll. That kind of music just soothes the soul. I reminisce about the days of old. I like that old time rock and roll. Wow! One of the reasons we lasted for 47 years was people like this man. This guy always kind of made us resurrect ourselves. I'd like to send this song out to a very good friend of mine, Leo, and his wife, Pat. Here you go. Heavenly shades of night are falling. It's twilight time. Out of the mist your voice is calling. It's twilight time. When purple-colored curtains mark the end of day, I hear you, my dear, at twilight time. Deepening shadows gather splendor as day is done. Fingers of night will soon surrender the setting sun. I count the moments, darling, till you're here with me. Together at last at twilight time. Yeah. In the afterglow of day, we keep our rendezvous beneath the moon. Yeah. In that sweet and same old way, I fall in love again as I did then. In the dark, your kiss will thrill me like days of old, lighting a spark of love that fills me with dreams untold. I count the moments, darling, till you're here with me. Together at last at twilight time.
of the questions that have been asked to me through the years are, number one, how the Chevrons ever became a band to start with, and number two, how we got our name. Dave, myself, and yourself were the first ones there with the Chevrons, and you were even a little before me.
That's right, absolutely.
So why don't you share a little bit on how the band started?
Okay. It actually started in the spring of 1959. That's the year that I graduated from 9th grade from Holy Redeemer School. And in those days, you went to 9th grade at Holy Redeemer, and your first year in high school, you went in as a sophomore. But we always had a graduation breakfast at 9th grade at Holy Redeemer, and one of the nuns asked if I could put together a little group to play a few songs at the breakfast, and I said sure. So I got a couple of my friends together, and we went up on stage and we played Peter Gunn. I don't know if you'll know these songs, but we played Peter Gunn. We played a song that I wrote called Red Devil, which was
Great song.
That's a great song. Thanks. And then we played, Peter Gunn, Red Devil, and Rumble. I remember those three songs to this day. And that's the start of it. And we called ourselves the Echoes at that time, back in 1959. And we stayed together for just a short time. But then I figured, well, it was time that I really, really wanted to get a guy in there that could play guitar. And even though I was strumming on the guitar, I figured it's time to get Tom Olivas in because he was a player. So I called Tom, and Tom got in it, and we eventually progressed and evolved into the Chevrons back in the 60s, back in 1960 actually. And
What happened was we decided that the Echoes wasn't very rock and roll-y
That's true.
sounding, right?
Yeah,
It sounded
that's right.
kind of,
Yeah.
That and the fact that one of the other guys that had played with Dave was using the name also.
Right, and there was another national group out there.
Yeah.
called the
Oh,
Blue Echoes,
Blue Echoes.
which we
were-
wanted to get away from that.
That's right.
So we're all sitting around one day at Dave's house, because that was kind of, back then, the center of what we did was 39th and Congress here. And we were all sitting around one day just thinking about names, and we had an assignment. We're supposed to go home and come back with some names.
Some names, right, yeah.
And I really couldn't think of anything that stood out to me. And I remember Tom come along with a couple names like the Sandmen and the Egyptians, and back then
The Phoenicians!
the Phoenicians. Every
That's right, it was the Venetians.
every band back then was something cool, like the Ricochets and the
Yeah,
And-
Renegades.
Renegades, Big Louie and the Renegades.
Right.
So we were all sitting around, and I was, being the oldest, I think I was the only guy, and I had a credit card. I think it was one of them old Wisconsin credit cards, and I'm looking on the back of the credit card. Here's a bunch of names of, you can use this card in other states, and one of them was Chevron Gas.
Uh-huh.
I said, what about the Chevrons? And then the idea that the chevron is a military thing, and it's a sign of excellence in the military, kind of helped it along. So I guess we all agreed that it ought to be the Chevrons, and
That's right.
that was probably in early 1961 when we did that.
It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Have a good time. 'Cause it's alright. Oh, it's alright. We're gonna move it slow. When the lights are low. When you move it slow, it sounds like Mo. 'Cause it's alright, well, it's alright. Now listen to the beat, the kind of pats your feet. You've got soul got to say it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Have a good time, 'cause it's alright. Well, it's alright. Clap your hands, give yourself a chance. You've got soul, everybody knows that it's alright. Whoa, it's alright. One day I'll find me a woman who will love and treat me real right. But my road's got to go, and I need to know her morning, noon, and night. You gotta say it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Have a good time, 'cause it's alright. Oh, it's alright. Everybody clap your hands. Clap your hands. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. You got soul. Everybody knows that it's alright. Whoa, it's alright. Everybody clap your hands. Clap your hands. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. You got soul. Everybody knows that it's alright. Whoa, it's alright.
One of the things back in the early 60s was the intensity that I remember was the intensity of the competition between bands. And our main nemesis at that time were the Pharaohs, right?
Right.
At State Fair Park.
Yep.
There was one night that particularly comes to mind where they would start their sets every week with a certain song, and we kind of jumped on that and played it as our last song because we were up first.
That's right.
And do you remember that one? Anybody remember that story?
That was Black Pepper, and when the Pharaohs played Black Pepper, it was like wiping the slate clean. I mean, the song was too fast to dance to, and Little Artie was great, you know, and somebody on the stage would sneeze and he would sing it, and the whole place would just turn. So it was a great song, and it was a grabber. I always called it a grabber because it just got everybody's attention. So we decided we're going to learn that song,
Got our
and
attention.
so we went home and we learned that song, and we played it the last song of the first set, which left those guys standing on the stage with nothing to play.
It was great.
And I think Artie still hates us for that. And Phil Zinus looked at me and went, "What are you doing?" You know?
From New Orleans, back up in the woods among the evergreen. The stool log cabin made of earth and wood. Now then you come to boy named Johnny B. Good. He never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play the guitar just like a ringing a bell. I said, go, go, Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, go. Johnny be good. I'm Maryland. And the guitar and he gun his sack. Sipping in the tree by the railroad track. The then you can see him sitting in the shade, strumming to the rhythm that's driving me. And all of them on they would stop and say, oh, that little country bird can play. Go, 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 Johnny, go, go. from miles around. I hear you play music when the sun goes down. Everybody saying they will be in lights, but Johnny be good tonight. Oh, go, go, Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, go. Yeah, Johnny be good, Doc. One time. People come from miles around. You hear you play music when the sun goes down. And day and they will be in life. Johnny be good tonight. Come on now. Go, Johnny, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go. Ah, Johnny be good. Well, I'll tell you, there's a guy in this band that wasn't antsy about an hour ago. Yeah. I didn't even want to wake up.
Wait a minute, you didn't wake up, Fred?
You know why I didn't
Why,
wake
Fred?
up?
Why didn't you wake up, Fred? Tell me, what happened? Did something happen?
Shh. I couldn't sleep at all last night. Just a thinking of you. Everything wasn't right. 'Cause I was tossing and turning, turning and tossing. Tossing and turning all night. I kicked the blankets on the floor. Couldn't get you off my mind. Next to the door. 'Cause I was tossing and turning, turning and tossing, tossing and turning all night. Jumped out of bed, turned on the light, pulled up the shaver to the kitchen door light, pulled down the shade, turn off the light. I jumped back into bed, it was the middle of the night. The clock outside was striking four. Couldn't get you off my mind. I heard a milkman at the door. 'Cause I was tossing and turning, turning and tossing, tossing and turning all night.
Kenny actually, you were there in 1960, but after Dave and myself,
Right.
and after Fred.
Right.
Locke came on the scene in 64, but you came in 1960, and before that, we had a young guy named Mike Lynch who graduated in 62 from Mesmer with you, Dave.
That's not right. He
No.
was killed in a car accident before he was able to graduate.
Okay,
In 62.
I thought it was the day after. But
No, it
Okay,
was before.
well, all right. So we lost Mike early on.
Right.
But even before that, though, Mike had given indications that he really didn't want to be in the band anyway.
He wanted to pursue other things.
Right.
We won't go into detail, but that's
He wanted to chase girls.
well.
Those are the details. But you know, the interesting part of that, and then we'll get into Vance here for a second, but the interesting part of that is I remember at the time saying to Mike, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And he said, "Well, you guys probably ain't going to be together longer than a year or two anyway."
I had been practicing a little with a couple other guys in my house, but we really didn't have a band. And I remember they called me, and I was more than happy to go and play at the job. After playing at the job, they, I guess, offered to let me into the band, and I stayed with the band then until about August of 1968, when I was drafted into the Army. Spent 2 years into the Army and came back, and I didn't go back to the band, but I went to see the guys where they were playing off and on. In about 1968, I think Freddie called me and wanted to put together the group again as more of a not quite like the Chevrons were, but we were going to have a different name, and we were going to play more for the weddings. So
You mean 78?
I think 70.
1978,
yeah.
and so we started up again, and until today.
Yeah, and our name was, we changed it to a 4-man group, which was Freddie, myself, Locke, and Vance, and we called ourselves Good Friends and Vintage Wine for a couple of years, which is a pretty hokey name when you think about it. But,
Well, it was kind of a throwback thing, and
Yeah.
that's what we were. It was at a time when that kind of a thing wasn't a big deal, but it was to us because we were already in it for 20 years, and we were kind of throwing back a little bit, and because the group had essentially split up, we didn't want to call ourselves the Chevrons because we really weren't the same 5 or 6 people. So we took the new name. It didn't. Very shortly afterwards, I remember one of our really good friends coming up and saying, "I don't care what you call yourself. To me, you're still the Chevrons." And I guess that's when we went back.
I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. We got some things to do with me, and I'm gonna get it on. I'm gonna be standing on the corner, 12th Street Line. I'm gonna be standing on the corner, 12th Street Line. Here I come, with my Kansas City baby and my bottle of Kansas City wine. Well, I might take a train, I might take a plane, but if I have to walk, I'm gonna get on the train. I'm going to Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. Here I come, we got some crazy little women, and I'm gonna get you on. If I take a train, take a plane, or if I have to walk, I'm gonna get back on the train. I'm going to Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. Kansas City, here I come. It's a crazy little river, and I'm gonna get you on. I'm gonna be standing on the corner, 12th Street Line. Kansas City, here I come. I'm gonna be standing on the corner, 12th Street Line. Kansas City, here I come. With my Kansas City baby and my bottle of Kansas City wine. Well, I might take a train, I might take a plane. If I have to walk, I'm gonna get back on the train. I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. Kansas City, here I come. They got some crazy little women there, but I'm gonna get me one. Kansas City, here I come. Kansas City, here I come.
guys in and out of the band through the years. For example, when you left for Vietnam, right, which was
August of 1968.
68, we had a guy named Ira join us, and Ira was our drummer for a number of years later. I left the band in 1970 for 2 or 3 years, and a guitar player named Jack Grassel joined the band and took over for a while. Our lead singer, after Dave left in 67,
Yes, that's correct.
67,
Yes.
early 67, I'm sure a lot of you folks will remember Happy Harry from the old house days. We were really lucky with Happy Harry because when you left, we were looking for an R&B singer. And
Yeah, I had to sing lead for about 3 months there, and then I had to leave the band for a
you
short
left?
time, a real short
Yeah.
time. And then Harry had been coming over to Vance's house for rehearsals. And he was a friend of Wolf's because he sold shoes with Wolf's older
Right.
brother, and he'd be over at our rehearsals, and it turned out that I had to leave the band for a short time because I was working second shift, and I still played on the weekends. But
Right.
Happy Harry, he said, "You guys should sing this like this," and he'd go, "Oh," and all that stuff,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, we were
and,
shocked.
And he was, God, this guy can really sing,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
You know, and so he was kind of a godsend because we needed
Yeah.
somebody to to sing lead, and he took over, and he just did a great job, and we worked well together, and
Yeah, he just fell on us from the sky. I mean, it was like, holy cow,
So-
we didn't even know this
Ladies
guy
and
sang.
gentlemen from the old house, Mr. Happy Harry. Go! 1, 2, 3, 4.
that time in our history as a group, we were handled by a booking agent, and we were playing a lot of jobs around southeast Wisconsin and even northern Illinois. So he booked us in a job one time in a bar in Fox Lake, Illinois. Kenny wasn't feeling well, I don't think, that night because we were in the middle of a song and all of a sudden we have no drum. And we
Turn around
and he was laying on the floor. He had passed out cold, so we had to get him up, get him outside. We sat him on the porch, and we got him plenty of air and got him some water. And he came back. He was feeling all right enough to continue, and we did. We finished the job that night, and I was pretty proud of him. That's one of the things I'll never forget is when Kenny keeled over on the drums.
$5.50 to go out and slinger and play for 4.5 hours.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
Dave, you were the leader of the band at that point, doing the contracts.
That's
and,
right.
So how did we end up paying for that job?
Well, we had signed a union contract. We were all union musicians at that time. And we tried to make sure that every job we did was a union job.
Union job.
And so we signed a union contract. And once you sign a contract, you've got to pay taxes on that money that you earned. Well, somehow we got in touch with, or Frenchie got in touch with us and booked us out there. We signed the contract.
Frenchie's Snack Shack.
That's what it was.
Right.
Frenchie's Snack Shack in Slinger, Wisconsin.
In the middle of blizzard.
Yeah. And,
Nobody was there.
Right, yeah, right.
Nobody.
Nobody.
and nobody showed for the job.
Nobody,
And
but us.
We were there on this stage, and the stage was really kind of, it was bouncing up and down. It was really kind of a
was like-
makeshift.
So it was plywood on some of those concrete blocks.
Yeah, it was a
Right.
makeshift.
So the middle
thing.
of it would
Yeah,
sink in
that's
and
right.
go up
That's
and
right.
down. Yeah.
But we played the job, and we had to pay for the taxes.
So
on
the
job.
next day, you called me and
Yeah.
said, I got good news and bad news for
Right,
you.
uh-huh.
The good news is we sounded really good and we're going to be back there. And the bad news, I need $5.50 for the tax on the money we didn't even make.
That's right. That's absolutely right, because we had to pay those taxes.
And so you said, well, we're going to play there again. And I thought, gee, I can't afford another $5.50 to go back. And I said, why the heck would we do that? And you said, because he
He's
told
got
us that he's going to invest
new-
in this new lighting
light
system.
for
So
us.
Kenny,
Oh, gosh.
you've told this story a number of times.
He had the same stage, this plywood stage on the concrete blocks.
That's right.
And on each side he had one of these floodlights that you'd use at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And this circular
Not that big.
aluminum thing with a piece of cellophane, yellow, red, blue, and another
Green, I
color,
think.
green.
Yeah, 4 colors.
And he had a little motor on that, and all that thing would do was rotate. And that was his lighting.
That was
system.
$15 for that thing. And the neat thing about that light was, when we'd be playing, that plywood stage be
Yeah,
bouncing,
up
and the
and
darn light is bouncing up and down with us because he had it on the corner. Well, after the second time, and then besides that, we didn't make any money the second
That's
time.
right. And he wouldn't even give us a free hamburger.
He charged me
That's
40
right.
cents for my hamburger.
That's right,
You
that's
I said,
right.
"Holy
Oh,
cow." So after
what a
that,
job.
he said to you, well, I need you to come back. And you said, we're not coming back. And he said, you guys are killing me. And but anyway, that was Frenchie's Snack Shack.
When no one else can understand me, when everything I do is wrong, you give me hope and consolation. You give me strength to carry on. And you're always there to lend a hand. The world is brighter. You touch my hand and I'm a king. Your love to me is worth a fortune. Your love to me is everything. And you're always there, the reason why you love. salvation. You give me strength to carry on. And you're always there to lend a hand in everything I do. That's the wonder. The wonder of you. And when you smile, the world gets brighter. You touch my hand, and I'm a king. Your love to me is worth a fortune. Your love for me is everything. And I'll never know the reason why you love me as you do. That's the wonder. The wonder of you. Tell me. Jimmy Burton in person. I guess I'll never know the reason why you love me as you do. That's the wonder, of you. Yeah, take it home, Tommy. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank
Then
you.
in 1964, Locke, you joined the band, right?
That's right.
What I remember about that, and then I'll let you tell your story, is that we were looking for an organ player because rhythm and blues bands had keyboard guys, and we were looking, and we were looking for quite a while, a couple of months, and couldn't find anybody. And then one of my guitar students, one time said, "I know of this young guy who lives on Oklahoma, and you might check him out." And so Dave, you and I went to Locke's house, and we kind of auditioned him, and
Right.
And after a few minutes, you and I huddled in the corner, and I said to you, Dave, I think all of the good keyboard players are taken, so we're going to get stuck with what's left anyway, so we might as well hire this guy, right?
Hey,
But, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, here we are 47 years later, and I wouldn't have it any other way than that. I'm glad you joined. But
One of the reasons that we decided to go, I remember discussing with Locke, is because we had interviewed a couple other fellas that were already well known, and we were looking for somebody that would be in there for the long run. Maybe to us back then the long run was 3 or 4 years, but some of these other guys we knew would probably, the long run would be like a couple of months. So he was good, and he could learn. He had fast learners, so that's when I kind of thought that we'd go with Locke.
Yeah.
You guys talked about it, and
well, we made the right decision.
the idea of having a keyboard in a band was a new thing because, of course, before the technology began changing, a keyboard was a pretty big thing to carry around for a 4-hour job.
That's
right.
And the technology changed such that they were getting smaller and more electronic, and you could do that. We still had quite a job to carry the organ I was using at the time.
A
But I-
Lowry. It was
yeah,
a
Low-
Lowry.
it was a- yes,
called
it was.
a
It was
Lowry.
a two keyboard Lowry, kind of a console thing, but it was big. We could fit it. We could slide it in. My dad helped build a piece of plywood, which we would put in the trunk and slide the thing in, and then cover it and strap down the trunk so that we could transport it. And then later, they started coming out with organs that were actually built to be taken apart and folded up and would fit in the car. And I do remember the you guys coming to my basement and me auditioning, and I think I was a sophomore. I'm not sure if it was probably between sophomore and junior of high school, and I had been playing with some other rock bands, but they were the kind that were starting and lasted 2 jobs, and that was it.
Yeah.
And to get a call by a band called the Chevrons, which at the time was like one of the big names in the city of Milwaukee, they had the record out, and that was quite an honor. And so this was a big thing for me. And the biggest problem, which I think these guys will relate to, was the fact that I was just 16. And in fact, I just turned 16 when I was interviewed. It was my birthday's in the summer, and this was in the fall when I actually did play the first job with the band. And they had some convincing to do.
Jim Wolf, the Wolf and me, we went to his parents' house. And his father, especially, and his mother voiced their concerns because at that time we played regularly at the old house, which was a minor bar, and you had to be 18 to be in there. And his dad couldn't come out every Wednesday and Friday night hauling the organ out there and everything. So the question came out, what's going to happen with him in that minor bar? He's only 16 years old. And Wolf and I, we said we come from families. Jim's got a family, and we all care about our younger siblings, and we're not going to let anything happen to Tom. Don't you worry. There's going to be no drinking or any of that kind of stuff. When you go there, you're on stage, and it's all work, and that's what we did. We convinced his parents that it was all right to do that, and they went along with it. So,
Which, of course, was a whole bunch of bull because as
Yeah.
we did it till later when
what
we were
happened
like Fred
was
parties.
I was living up on the north side in an apartment at the time, and we took Tom out to celebrate, and immediately took him over to my house and gave him a beer.
Probably got
So
a
ask Coriel.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, you gotta do this song, you know.
most ironic parts of the whole story is that there were several nights where you were 16 and you were checking ID cards at the old house for Yardbird, as the owner.
Yeah. He'd ask, he'd ask, hey, I don't know. He said, what instrument you play again? He'd never remember what instrument we played. He knew the band, he knew who we were, but you're the sax player, right? No, I said, no, I'm the keyboard guy. Oh, he says, well, can you sit by the door because he wanted to go talk to somebody at the bar.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So I would check IDs, sat at the door, took $1 admission. I think it was $1 admission in those days.
And they had that little camera.
And checked IDs, and of course I never turned anybody down.
Every once in a while, in order to, I guess, for the county or whatever it was to make the rules go, they would raid the place.
Ozaki County.
Ozaki County Sheriff's
They would
Department,
raid it,
yeah.
And maybe 3-4 sheriff's officers would come in, and one would guard the door, and they would start going through the crowd checking IDs.
Right.
Yeah, remember that?
And here's Tom on stage playing the organ, and no parents, and so we turn up really loud. We turn everything up really loud, and the old officers, they'd get about halfway across the room. It was too loud for them, so they never. A couple times they didn't get to the stage. One time it looked like they were going to get there. And Tom just bailed out the window. What did you do? You bailed out the window, and I think you hid in the bushes behind
Well,
him.
There was windows right on the stage. We had
Right next to you.
2 or 3 windows where we all used to set our beers. Vance and I used to set our
because
beers
it
on the
came
one
into
window.
the corner, and
so
the drum stand or whatever you want to call it, the
Yeah.
platform was there, and there was a window on each side
Right.
that led out to the back,
Yep.
where there was nothing. There was an old swimming pool.
Well, yeah, he had a
some
swimming
field.
pool.
You go and hide it behind his bushes out behind his swimming. I remember one night we got raided, and there was one of the sheriff's guys was standing next to me because I was on the left side of the stage, and you were out the window already, hiding in the bushes. And guy kept looking over at your organ, at your keyboard, and wondering, well, who's playing that thing? I mean, we're playing, and we're cranked up trying to play real loud to kind of drive him out of there, the sheriff's department, and he's looking over there, and so he's looking at me like, who plays that thing? And I was like, I don't know, you were hiding out in the bushes.
A week ago last Thursday, Dave and I were lucky to be invited to WOKY in the morning for Throwback Thursday. And, we really enjoyed it, but I'm on the freeway, and I'm heading for WOKY, which is over in the southwest corner of the, the northwest corner of the whatever. Well, I know where it is. I made it over there. So it's like 10 minutes late, and I hear this voice on the phone. Can I make a request?
Yes, you can.
I says, boy, that sounds like my daughter in Florida. She's listening on the net, because you can listen to WOKY on the net. A good friend of mine, Jim Coach, was down there listening on the net too. Florida, yeah. And I hear this voice. She said, well, can you play Pretty Woman for me? Because my dad always dedicates that to me. So I'm on the freeway, the tears are running down. And when we got to talking about it with Greg, Greg said, that was kind of touching that your daughter called from Florida. I says, yeah, and I'm on a freeway and I can't see where I'm going. The tears are running. Well, this is Pretty Woman. This is from Melissa. She's right over here. She flew up from Florida. Here we go. goes out to one lady and one lady only. You probably saw her when you walked in the door tonight.
Is it Dawn?
It's my wife.
No, must be a different one.
What are you That's right. Lady? As Fred said, she's the wage earner now. Sure, Fred.
Yeah, she's keeping me up. You know what?
What's wrong, man?
Because she's right over here. Let's give her a big hand. This song goes to her always. But that's not the name of the song. Do it. Wise men say early fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
had this whole group of guys from the east side, and they would come out regularly, and every once in a while a whole bunch of collegiate guys would come out, and they'd get into it, and there'd be a brawl, and it seemed like every Wednesday there would be a fight. And so the story goes that the band, us, we decided to make money on this thing, and so
So let's start a pool.
yeah,
See
pool.
when the fight's going to start, you know. And so, you know, Dave would take from 9:15 to 9:30, and another guy would take another 15 minutes. So the funny part of it was I began to notice we played the song "Shake a Tail Feather."
Shake a Tail Feather,
There was
yeah.
a certain way that the ladies would dance. They would kind of bend forward and shake their tail feather,
I loved that.
and you know, guys would start watching tail feathers.
Yeah.
Right. And some guy would see some guy watching his girlfriend's tail feather, and that usually created a problem.
Yeah.
So I would always make an attempt, because Ali always called the songs, he still does.
Yeah.
But he didn't mind suggestions, so I would just out of the corner of my mouth, I see it's my time to is on, I'd say, hey Ali, let's do Shake a Tail Feather. And sure enough, we'd do shake a tail feather, and the fight would start. So I didn't tell him about that till about 2 or 3 years later, that I was orchestrating wins.
It's actually 30 years later when you told me about
Yeah, I think this is the first I heard it.
That was a request for a little bit of a thing called Shake a Tail Feather, so y'all can do it now. Oh, those good old days.
couple of places where there was a near fight at
there
one
was
of
a
them
fight, yeah.
and a big brawl at the other one. The
Yeah.
near fight happened in Sheboygan, at the Sheboygan
that was a
Armory.
great day.
Right?
Oh boy.
So Dave, me and you sort of instigated that one. But
Well, that's true. There was a fella there that came up even before we started playing and requested that we do James Brown right off the bat, a James
Right off the
Brown
bat.
song. And you know, doing a James Brown song takes your throat has to get broken in during the night to be able to sing that kind of music. And so we said, no, we can't do it right away, and we let it go at that. But eventually, he kept after us, and really, he got to be really annoying after a while. And then I think Tom stepped in.
me,
Yeah, Ollie stepped in and said something to him and that kind of upset him. So, Tom, you want to say what it was?
I was kind of rash about. I said, "Look, if you want James Brown right off the bat, put a nickel in the slot machine and go and play it."
The jukebox.
The jukebox,
Yeah.
which really kind of PO'd him off.
Oh,
as.
of course, yeah.
So, anyway, so I thought that was the end of it.
But
And,
no,
oh.
it wasn't the end
No?
because a couple of the guys had brought their girls with them to girlfriends with them to the job, and they were dancing and having a good time. Well, it wasn't the end of the whole thing because, from what I understand, and I don't recall it real well, Tom, but I think you said the other girls in the audience formed a circle.
Their
around them,
girlfriends. This guy got all of his buddies and all of their girlfriends, and they
girlfriends.
kind of surrounded our.
They circled the two girls, and they wanted to start something right there.
They wanted to goad us into a fight
Yeah.
by using our girlfriends as the bait, kind
Okay.
of thing. And of course, when we saw that happening, we stopped the song right in the middle and said something like, "You guys want trouble? You're gonna get it," and all of that stuff. And so,
Wrong thing to say.
wrong thing to say. I mean, that guy was big.
Of course.
The guy who wanted James Brown. And so after the job, if you remember that place, we parked in the building.
It was a
Yeah.
big place, big
Yeah,
armory.
big
It was the
armory,
armory.
yeah.
Big
It was the
armory in the
yeah.
building. And
That
after
was
the
cool.
job, I remember, and they had this security guard there who was
Yeah.
about 140 pounds and about 92 years old, right? He's going to protect us. And we got all of our instruments loaded, and we pull up the door
Right.
to drive out, and we noticed that there's this convoy of these cars circling the block waiting for
Waiting
us.
for us to come out.
That's right.
Waiting for us.
I remember that.
Then we thought, well, now we've had it.
Yeah.
Now we've had it. But we were able to get an escort out of town from
Well,
the.
the security guy said, "Do you want me to call the police?" And we said yes. And so about 8 paddy wagons showed up and said, "Look, we can't stop them because they're not doing anything. They're just circling, you know. But we
that's
know
right.
why they were there. They were circling, waiting for us." And he said, "We'll make a convoy and we'll put 4 of our vehicles in front of you, 3 in back. We'll take you as far as the,
County line.
County
yeah.
line.
Sheboygan County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then you're on your own,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah, that's right.
And,
So
we made it.
We made it to the line.
Obviously, we made it safely to the county line.
and then
And then, well, the old house was one of
we
our.
took off like
We
crazy.
took off like crazy, and the old house was probably 4 or 5 miles into Ozaukee County.
Right.
They were still following us
Yeah,
past
they
the
were
county
still
line.
following
This
us,
group
and,
of guys.
and we pulled right into the old house, and it was a Saturday night, and there still were people there, and they knew who we were because that was our regular hangout, and we pulled in there, and as we pulled in there, we told the guys what was going on, and they pulled out and started chasing those guys
Yeah,
back to Sheboygan.
That's
So
right.
I don't know if it was before that or after that, but we played this job at Divine Savior, which is supposed to be a really
Well,
great
Divine-
Catholic place. But
Now it's Divine Savior Holy Angels.
Right.
Holy Angels High School, but back then it was just Divine Savior High School.
Yep.
It was an
Right.
all-girl high school, and they had a job, and they hired us, and the priest was a little bit concerned because we had kind of a reputation already, and one that was not deserved.
no,
So we
we never started a fight.
No, we didn't. And we were into the evening, probably our second set, I'm sure, maybe around 10 or 10:30 at night, and a fight started. And evidently, somebody must have pulled a weapon of some kind, a knife. That's why they shut us down. They shut us down, they closed the dance out, and everybody had to leave.
well, why they?
I remember, Dave, we had just started taking the break.
Is that what it was?
And,
I thought
and I was standing
was a
out in the
brawl.
hall. I was standing out in the hall talking to some people I knew, and you came running out and says, "Fred, come in here."
Okay.
And
We
we
wanted to get the
ran up
music
to the
on.
stage because one of the things that always helped to dissolve those situations is if the band would start playing,
Right.
all the people that were watching the fight or might tend to get involved with it would come back and dance to the music.
That's true. Yeah.
And we went up on the stage, and we hadn't taken a break but for a minute or two, and we started playing, and his priest came up, and I don't remember his name, but he looked like a madman. His eyes were like this, and he says, "You guys caused this. You guys are done." And Dave said, really nice to him, he said, "Sir, please let us play, because if we start playing, half or 3/4 of those people are going to stop fighting."
I mean, there was a brawl going.
Yeah,
it was
there
a
was a
brawl.
big brawl going on, and-
There were bodies flying in the hallways, and it was a huge. And I think it ended up with something like 11 paddy wagons. Right?
What I heard was that that was preordained, that it was some
Yeah.
kind of a gang thing or
Yeah.
or school against school thing, that Louis Michel could have played there, and it would have been a problem.
I mean, there must have been 80 guys into it, and but anyway, that job ended about 10 o'clock.
That's right.
And then they gripe because we made them pay the full amount for the contract, which I didn't bother. I took their money.
Goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you still mine? I need your love. I need your love. Godspeed your love to rivers flow to the sea, to the open arms of the sea. No riverside, wait for me, I'll be coming home, wait for me. Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch. I've hungered for your touch a long, lonely time. Time goes by so slowly, and time could do so much. Are you still mine? I need your love. I need your love. Godspeed your love to me.
Probably our favorite place to play through all of the years, and we were the house band out there for a number of years. The old house, this old house in Port Washington, which was really, if you drove in, it would be a long, winding, down in the valley kind of dirt road, and the old house was a former farmhouse, and it was positioned next to the railroad tracks, and it was a former railroad station.
Back
right?
when the trains didn't move real fast in the
Yeah.
in the middle of the 19th century.
And
The old house was a way stop. The train would actually stop there, and the people would stay overnight in the old house
but it was owned
on
by
their way to Green Bay.
But it was owned by, I think Dave was a farmer at one time, and his wife.
Well,
and-
Dave was one of the local characters out there. He worked in the supermarket, and he ran a minor bar, and he owned that property, which was a farm, and I'm sure it was in his family.
And that place was packed every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and we would play just about every Wednesday and Friday for a number of years. And we used to refer to Dave as the Yardbird. I think Wolf gave him that name. Wolf would go into Dave's kitchen because it was really a house, and then it was part of the house was converted to a minor bar, and but part of the house was the kitchen. I mean, that's where the Klingdales lived, and then the bedrooms were upstairs, and Wolfo used to go into Yardbird's kitchen and look for stuff on break, and one time he found a whole bunch of smoked fish. So he ate all of his smoked fish and put the empty box back in and got Dave all ticked off. And another time he had chicken feet in there or something, so he ate a bunch of those.
Well,
but-
you know, I found out later on that chicken feet is the reason you never see them in the store is because they're used to make chicken broth, and so nothing gets wasted. The chicken feet wind up at some place like Campbell's and turn it. But Dave, being a farmer, he had a collection of chicken feet.
Yeah.
And he'd make his broth. He'd make his broth, and then he'd pickle them. And boy, they were good. You know, pickled chicken feet. There's no meat on them. And the Wolf, being what he is from the Wolfel family, and the Germans, you know, he loved chicken feet. So he ate his chicken feet, and afterwards, Dave would get him some so he could take them to his grandma.
Oh, he used to get
Yeah.
Yardbird so mad at him because he'd go in there and he'd eat all his smoked fish. And I remember going out there one time, and Yardbird says to Wolfel, he says, "Doggone it, I really had a taste for smoked fish." And I went in there, and all there was this empty box.
One, two, three. Here she comes now, saying, "Moreover, yeah." Well, shoot 'em down, turn around, come on, pony. Well, she gives me love and a future right now.
off your radio over there? Holy crap.
Oh God, what? You know you make me want to shout. Throw my head up and 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 shout. Come on now. Gotta get to see you well. Gotta get to see you well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Say you right now, baby. Come on. I still remember you used to be my night and day. I really need you, I want you to know. You make me want to shout. A little bit softer. That's when I wish you had a camera on the ceiling. A little bit louder now, 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 a little bit louder now.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for 47 great years. We couldn't have done it without you. We couldn't have done it without all of you. Ah, man, I love this band, and I wish we didn't have to quit, but we can't do it anymore. We're just drinking our cans tonight. You want to say something, Freddie? Yeah, say it.
You know, there's a lot of things that go into putting a band together like us. You know, and some of the greatest musicians in Milwaukee have asked, and we're not the greatest musicians, we're just the greatest band. Because when somebody had a problem with a part, somebody else would pick up and help out. We were a team. We're the greatest team I ever was on, and I was on some pretty good teams. But this team was something special, and you know, some of us went through more than one wife, but you know, for us, you know, a very famous musician from Milwaukee, and I love the guy, asked me, how do you guys do it? And I said, you know, it's not always easy. It's like being married. Sometimes you got to work at it. These guys, these 5 guys, we worked at it. We really did. And this is hard, but this is it. Tommy, you want to say something? Vance? I know he's got something. This guy here and I, we've been here but in time the longest, but we're going to Vegas over Thanksgiving, him and I. We're gonna beat the pants off opinions.
We're not staying in the same room, though. No, not in the same room. Anyway, folks, we'll see you all down the road. Thanks for 47 great years, and thanks for coming tonight to help us with this tonight. All right. Thank you.
God bless you. Okay, Leo. Take care.
Don't forget about our DVD. It's coming out. Wagner's going to buy 6 of them. Thank you very much. Good night, folks. Drive carefully, and we'll see you down the road.